This is Debbie. She was trafficked at the age of 15. One evening, Debbie had gotten a call from her friend Bianca, who asked to stop by her house. Debbie went outside to meet Bianca, who drove up in a Cadillac with two older men, Mark and Matthew. After a few minutes of visiting, Bianca said they were going to leave. So Debbie went to give Bianca a hug, and that's when she pushed her into the car. As they sped away from Debbie's house, Debbie heard one of the men telling Bianca to tie her up, and if she didn't, he would shoot her. Bianca tied up Debbie's hands, put tape over her mouth, and tape over her eyes. While this was happening, Matthew told Debbie if she screamed or acted stupid, he'd shoot her, so she stayed quiet. Debbie was kidnapped from her own driveway with her mother inside. Her mother had no idea Debbie wasn't there. Debbie's captors drove her around the streets of Phoenix for hours. Then she was finally taken to an apartment 25 miles away from her home. One of her captors put a gun to her head and said, "If I was to shoot you right now, where would you want to be shot? In your head, in your back, or in your chest?" Debbie heard him messing with his gun, and he counted to 3 and then pulled the trigger. But she was still alive. She opened her eyes and saw him laughing. Debbie was then drugged by her captors, and other men were brought into the room where she was gang raped. Then Debbie heard a man say there was a middle-aged guy in the living room that wanted to take advantage of a 15-year-old girl. The man said,
"Bend her over. I want to see what I'm working with."
And that's when he started to rape her. There were more guys. 4 others had came into the room, and they all had a turn. After the gang rape, Debbie was trapped in one of Phoenix's roughest neighborhoods. In a run-down, garbage apartment, her captors were trying to break her down. They were asking her if she was hungry. When she told them no, they would put a dog biscuit in her mouth, trying to get her to eat it. Debbie was tossed back into the car and again driven around Phoenix. They talked to her about prostitution, and one of the men forced her to have sex with him in the car and then later in the park. The same man took her back to his apartment, where Debbie was put into a dog kennel. Debbie was kept in a small dog crate for several days. Lying on her back in a tiny space made her whole body go numb. She was abused in different ways. This is all part of the breaking down period where the pimp will gain control of the girl. Her captors had put an ad on Craigslist, a national website better known for helping people find apartments and roommates. Shortly after the ad ran, men began arriving at the apartment at all hours of the day and night, demanding sex from her. Debbie was earning hundreds of dollars a night. All of it was going to the pimp. Debbie was forced to have sex with at least 50 men, and that's not counting the men who gang raped her on a periodic basis. Debbie had no idea who the men were. Most of the men were married with kids, and every single one of them, she asked them why they were coming to her if they had a wife at home. They didn't have an answer. After Debbie heard that, she didn't care what happened to her. All she wanted was to keep her family safe. That's why she never escaped. Debbie was later saved after months of being in captivity. Mark and Matthew, the 2 men that forced Debbie into prostitution, were both charged with pimping.